I thought the worst day of my life was when he left me for someone else, but watching him fall apart while I built the life we once dreamed of without him. That was something even I didn't see coming. He chose her. He lost me. And now, he won't stop calling. But here's the twist: time not picking up. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Like the video and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Now let's jump into the story. Lina Cortez sat in her glass-walled corner office while sheets of rain drummed against the windows. Her phone buzzed on the desk, the screen glowing with the name she once typed into every daydream: Darren Quinn. 7 missed calls glared back at her, as if the past were tapping on the glass, begging to be let in. Lina kept her hands folded, steady as a lighthouse, and wondered how one name could still feel like a ghost at the door. She let the phone ring out its lonely tune, then turned her chair toward the city lights smeared across the storm. 2 years ago, she would have answered before the first ring, voice trembling with excitement. 2 years ago, she would have believed any story he told. But that Lina felt far away now, like a childhood toy left in an attic box. To understand why, the story must drift back to a warmer afternoon, when hope smelled like fresh coffee and possibility. Lina had met Darren at 23 in a tiny cafe hidden behind ivy-covered brick. She was fresh out of college, clutching a marketing internship and wearing shoes that pinched her heels. He stood at the counter explaining how recycled steel could change the city's skyline, his hands carving shapes in the air. Curiosity drew. Her closer charm sealed the gap. They shared a table, an almond croissant, and a rush of conversation that lasted until the barista stacked chairs for closing. Before leaving, Darren scribbled his number on her receipt and said, "For the next big idea." Lina walked home believing she had found her future. In those early months, everything felt like sunrise. They explored flea markets, planned imaginary road trips, and filled notebooks with sketches of dream houses. Lina proofread Darren's first project proposals at midnight, caffeine twitching her fingers awake. When his bank account dipped, she covered groceries without fanfare. When his mother fell ill, she traded vacation days for hours in a hospital chair so he would not sit alone. She called it love. She called it partnership. She called it forever time. However, is a quiet editor. Small changes slipped into their story, almost invisible at first. Darren started working late, always with reasonable explanations: client dinners, site inspections, urgent deadlines. His phone, once tossed onto the sofa, became a private diary he guarded with a tight smile. It buzzed during dinner. He would flip it face down and say, "Just numbers." Lina noticed the way his shoulders tensed when she asked harmless questions. Doubt whispered, but she shushed it with loyalty. Then came Ivy Madden. Darren described her as a brilliant project manager who streamlined chaos into order. Lina, eager to support, celebrated his luck. She even suggested inviting Ivy to their Saturday barbecue so she could thank the woman improving Darren's workload. The idea never happened. Instead, Lina heard Ivy's name more often, woven into longer stories about innovative ideas, favorite films, and late-night brainstorming. While Darren spoke, his eyes shone in a way Lina had once believed was reserved for her. One rainy Thursday, Lina cooked honey-glazed salmon, Darren's favorite, hoping to reclaim the warmth they once shared. Music hummed from the speakers, steam curled above the pan, and the apartment smelled like comfort. Darren's phone rested on the counter, its screen lighting up with a message. Lina glanced without intention. What she saw stopped the room. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Thanks for making me feel special." The words came from Ivy. 2 emojis, followed 1 heart, 1 kiss. Lina's pulse thundered. She read the line again, hoping letters might rearrange themselves into something harmless, but nothing changed. The salmon popped in the skillet, but she no longer smelled its sweetness. Her vision tunneled around that glowing message. Memories crashed over her: the hospital visits, the rent she paid, the dreams she postponed. Fractured, hands shaking, Lina picked up the phone as if it were hot metal and walked to the sofa. She sat facing their gallery of framed photos, smiles in sunlight, silhouettes against festival fireworks, promises frozen in pixels. The phone felt heavy, like it contained the true weight of their story. She rehearsed what she would say when Darren walked through the door. Questions, accusations, the single word why. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Inside, Lena listened to the soft tick of the kitchen clock counting down to confrontation. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. The front door clicked open, and Darren entered, rain on his jacket, keys jingling a cheerful tune. He smiled when he saw her, but the smile faltered when he noticed his phone in her grip. Guilt spread across his face, an expression Lena recognized even before he spoke. She thought of how easily he once said forever. She thought of Ivy waiting, somewhere, expecting Darren's arrival. She thought of herself alone with 1,000 silent questions. Her voice felt distant as she whispered, "We need to talk." The sentence hovered between them like smoke rising from an unseen fire, hinting at the flames about to swallow everything they had built. The salmon burned in the pan, filling the apartment with a bitterness that matched the taste in Lena's mouth. Darren opened his lips to speak, but the words came too late to stop the house of cards from collapsing. The evening stretched ahead, tense and uncharted. And Lena realized the next few moments would decide whether she remained an echo of her former self or stepped into a life rewritten by truth. The phone buzzed again on her office desk. Lena backed to the present storm. She let it ring. Outside, lightning stitched the sky with silver threads, and she felt the same electric charge spark inside her chest. Somewhere across the city, Darren's call went to voicemail for the 8th time. Lena turned from the window, rolled her shoulders, and opened a fresh pitch deck on her laptop. There were bigger things to answer than the past. The silence after Lena's words was louder than any scream. "We need to talk," she had said, holding Darren's phone like it was proof in a trial neither of them expected. Darren stood there, dripping rainwater onto the carpet, his confident expression crumbling into something uncertain and nervous. He didn't try to lie. He didn't even try to defend himself. Instead, the truth spilled out like water from a cracked pipe. Yes, it started with late-night talks. Yes, they talked about their dreams, about things he never shared with Lena anymore. No, it wasn't just talking. It had turned into something else, something he claimed he didn't mean to happen. "Ivy," he said, "just understood him differently. It's just different with her." That word "different" broke something deep inside Lena. It made their 3 years together sound like a warm-up. She had stood by him through every failed pitch, every overdue bill, every rough day at work. She had believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. Now he was telling her that some new woman who never saw him at his worst made him feel something more special. She didn't yell. She didn't cry, not yet. Instead, she asked him to choose. There, in their quiet apartment, with his favorite dinner cooling in the kitchen and their life together, staring back from every photo on the wall, she gave him the chance to decide. He chose Ivy. He said it gently, as if softness could dull the sharpness of the blow. He told Lena she deserved someone who could love her better. Then, as if to prove how mature he was, he packed his things carefully, folding his clothes, unplugging chargers, tucking away keepsakes. It was the most polite heartbreak Lena had ever seen. And somehow, that made it hurt even more. By the end of the week, Darren and Ivy were official on social media. Lena saw the announcement while curled up on her bed, wrapped in the same blanket. Darren used to pull over her when she fell asleep on the couch. Ivy's caption read, "When you know." You know, with a photo of them smiling on a rooftop bar, the same rooftop Lena and Darren had talked about going to for months. 2 days later, they posted vacation photos from Miami, Lena recognized. The beach. It was the one she and Darren had once dreamed of visiting, but couldn't afford at the time. Now Ivy was standing where Lena had imagined herself, her arms around the man Lena had given everything to. The betrayal wasn't just about Ivy. It was about all the dreams Lena had held on to, now playing out like a movie with a new lead actress. And she had no choice but to watch it all happen from the sidelines. For days, Lena barely moved. She wore the same sweatshirt, same leggings. She scrolled through their photos until the colors blurred. Empty mugs and tissue boxes piled up around her like ruins. When her best friend Camille showed up after 3 days of unanswered calls, she found Lena lying on the couch, eyes red, phone in hand. "This isn't the end of your story," Camille said, pulling the phone away. This is the middle. End. You don't stop climbing in the middle. First, Lena didn't believe her. The pain was too sharp, the hole too deep. But Camille stayed. She made tea, ordered food, opened the windows. She played music. She reminded Lena who she was before Darren. It wasn't instant magic. Lena still cried herself to sleep that week. She still wondered if she had missed something, if she had done something wrong. But slowly, Camille's words started to grow roots in her mind. This wasn't the ending. Didn't have to be. Meanwhile, Darren and Ivy were everywhere. Dinner dates, gym selfies, sunset walks. Their lives looked perfect. But something inside Lena began to shift. At first, every photo hurt. But then the pain started to turn into something else. Not jealousy. It's not longing. Something quieter. It's something stronger. Anger. Not the kind that makes you scream, but the kind that whispers you deserve more. The kind that says, never again. Lena realized she had spent years being someone's support system while ignoring her own needs. She had dimmed her light so Darren could shine. Now that light was flickering back on. Slowly but surely, she began to write in a journal against something she hadn't done in years. She wrote about what she felt, what she feared, and what she wanted to change. She made a list of goals that had nothing to do with love. She started small. Clean the apartment. Cook a meal for herself. Walk around the block. Every small win felt like a stitch in the tear that Darren had left behind. She also stopped checking their social media, not out of denial but out of power. She no longer needed to know what they were doing. They were no longer part of her story. Weeks passed. The quiet apartment no longer echoed with emptiness, but with possibility. Lena changed the photos on the walls. She lit candles. She rearranged furniture. Little things, but they mattered. They told a new story, one where she was no longer a supporting character, but the lead. The heartbreak hadn't vanished. It still lived under her ribs, like a bruise. But bruises fade, and Lena, for the first time in a long time, was starting to heal. Lena stood in front of the mirror, tying her hair into a neat ponytail before her kickboxing class. Her reflection didn't just look different, it felt different. Stronger arms, clearer eyes, steadier hands. She wasn't looking for revenge. Anymore, she was looking for growth, and she was finally finding it. After weeks of tears and silence, Lena had made a decision. She wasn't going to rebuild the life she had with Darren. She was going to build something entirely new, something that had nothing to do with him. Not to prove a point, not to make him regret losing her, but because she finally realized she had spent too long putting herself last. The first real step was therapy. It wasn't something she ever thought she'd need. She had always told herself she was fine, even when she wasn't. But Dr. Olivia Rhodes helped her see things she had never noticed before, how she had made herself smaller in her relationship, how she gave without asking for anything in return, how she confused being needed with being loved. The sessions were uncomfortable at first, but over time, they became a safe place for her to unpack the things she used to hide, even from herself. Every week, she left Dr. Rhodes' office a little bit lighter, a little bit more sure of who she was and who she was becoming. Outside of therapy, Lena began focusing on her career. She realized how much she had been coasting, too scared to outshine Darren or chase opportunities that would take her further. But not anymore. She stayed late at the office, took risks on new projects, and even spoke up in meetings where she used to stay quiet. People started to notice when a senior strategist's position opened up at a competing firm. Lena didn't hesitate. She updated her resume, practiced her pitch, and walked into that interview like she owned the room. And 3 weeks later, she got the job. It's not just a new title and a salary bump. This was validation. This was respect. The promotion gave Lena more than just financial freedom, gave her confidence. She bought herself a small condo near the lake. It wasn't big, but it was hers. Every cushion, every picture frame, every plant had been chosen by her. It didn't carry memories of someone else. It was a fresh start. With her new job and a clearer mind, Lena also started saying yes to things she used to avoid. Weekend art classes, late-night book clubs, spontaneous road trips with Camille. She went to gallery openings and networking events, and even tried rock climbing once, though she laughed the entire way up and promised never to do it again one day. While working on a campaign launch, she met Marcus Hale. He was a data scientist with a quiet smile and kind eyes. He asked her about her ideas and actually listened. He wasn't loud or flashy. He didn't talk over her or try to fix her. He just showed up. They started getting coffee, then dinner, then long walks around the city, talking about everything from childhood memories to impossible dreams. When Marcus, Lena didn't feel like she had to shrink or prove anything. She was simply herself, and that was enough. While Lena's world was blooming, whispers about Darren's life began to trickle in through mutual friends. Things weren't picture perfect anymore. Ivy, it turned out, was extremely jealous. She didn't like when Darren talked to other women. She didn't trust him around old friends. She even went through his phone more than once looking for signs of trouble. His construction business, once full of promise, was losing clients. Darren had stopped focusing. It's too many arguments, too many distractions. Ivy, unlike Lena, didn't want to stay up until 2 a.m. editing proposals. She wasn't interested in running errands, making appointments, or supporting his big dreams. Then, out of nowhere, came the first message. It was short and polite. "Hey, hope you're doing well. Thinking about you." Lena stared at it for a few seconds before deleting it. No emotion, no second thoughts, just delete. But Darren didn't stop. A few days later, another message, then another. Each one a little more personal, a little more desperate. "I miss talking to you. We should catch up sometime." "I made a mistake." Lena didn't reply to any of them. She read them with the same curiosity she might give a story in the news. Interesting, but not relevant to her life anymore. Each message was a reminder of how far she'd come and how far behind he now was. Then came the voicemail. Ivy and Darren had broken up. The same woman he had chosen over Lena was now gone. "I realize now what I had with you was real," he said in the message. But by then, Lena had already moved on. She had Marcus. She had her career. She had peace. Darren's messages turned into calls. Then more voicemails. Sometimes he even showed up at events she was attending, trying to catch her attention. But Lena never gave in. The man who once left her shattered was now chasing a version of her he could never reach. Again, as she sat one evening at her favorite rooftop restaurant, watching the sun melt into the lake with Marcus by her side, Lena smiled to herself. Darren was still trying to fix a story that had already ended, but Lena, she was writing something new. Gold evening light fell across the rolling vineyard, wrapping the summer wedding in a soft glow. Rows of wooden chairs faced a stone arch covered in white roses, and laughter drifted over the hills like music. Lena Cortez walked along the path, in a pale green dress, her heels clicking on the flagstones. In one hand she held a glass of sparkling water. In the other, the steady arm of Marcus Hale. The air smelled of grapes, cut grass, and promesa, fitting place for the last loose thread of her past to unravel. She noticed Darren Quinn before he noticed her. He stood near the fountain, shoulders hunched, suit a touch too big as if confidence had leaked out and left extra fabric behind. The string quartet began another gentle song, but Lena felt no tremor in her chest. She had wondered what this meeting might feel like: fear, anger, sorrow. Instead, she felt calm, like watching a distant storm that never reaches shore. During the cocktail hour, Lena and Marcus mingled with friends. She spoke about work wins, travel plans, and the book she was reading. Every so often, she sensed Darren's stare, a weight at the edge of her awareness. Finally, as the sun lowered and lanterns flickered on, he approached, blocking the path to the bar as though he could hold time and place. "Lena, please," he said, voice carrying a quiver she had never heard from him. "Just 5 minutes." He tilted her head, studying the man she had once believed irreplaceable. Fine lines etched the corners of his eyes, but the real change sat deeper, a heaviness drawing his posture inward. Marcus glanced over, and Lena gave a small nod, signaling she was fine. He stepped aside, trusting her strength. Darren's eyes, searched hers for an opening. "I know I hurt you," he began, words rushing like water over rocks. "I made choices that..." Lena raised a hand, quiet but firm. "We can walk," she said, gesturing toward a quiet path lined with lanterns. If there would be closure, it deserved gentle space. Gravel crunched underfoot as they moved away from the music. Fireflies blinked between vines, tiny sparks against the twilight. When they stopped, Darren ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from college days. "I ended things with Ivy months ago," he said. "It fell apart. I kept thinking about what we had. Please don't rewrite history," Lena replied, her tone even. "What we had was real for its time. It ended because you chose something else." He swallowed. "I was stupid," I thought. Different meant better. But better was the person standing beside me the whole time. His voice cracked. "I've missed you every single day." Lena's eyes softened, but not with sympathy, more like remembrance of a song she once loved but no longer played. "Darren," she said, "I'm not angry with you. Truly." Hope flashed in his gaze. "I'm grateful," she continued. The word puzzled him. "Grateful?" "Yes," Lena said, "'cause losing you forced me to find myself. I discovered how strong I am, how bright my life can be without shrinking." She smiled gently. "The woman you left behind isn't here anymore. You're looking at someone new, someone who knows her worth." Darren's shoulders sagged, as if the night air itself pressed down. "But I choose you now," he whispered, almost a plea. "Doesn't that count for something?" She shook her head, kind but firm. "It's not about counting. The door you closed no longer exists. I've built a new house miles away." She glanced toward the lanterns where Marcus chatted with friends. "And someone else lives there with me, someone who values the person I became." A long silence settled. Cicadas sang in the vines. Finally, Darren exhaled, the sound heavy with understanding. "I guess this is goodbye." "Goodbye," Lena echoed softly. But before turning away, she placed a light hand on his arm. "Learn from this. Treat the next person with care. Most of all, treat yourself with honesty." Her words were not a knife. They were a mirror. Darren gave a small nod, eyes shining, then watched as she walked back toward the lantern light. When Lena rejoined the party, Marcus greeted her with a smile and silent question. She answered with a bright, steady grin that told the whole story. Together they moved to the dance floor, swaying beneath strands of fairy lights. Nearby, Darren stood alone, the candle he held flickering out with a soft hiss. He cupped it, trying to relight the wick, but the wind had other plans. Symbolism rarely shouts. Often it whispers. Later that night, Lena and Marcus left the vineyard in a car filled with soft music and tired laughter. The road was dark, but the future in Lena's mind glowed wide and clear. 6 months passed. Lena's life bloomed in directions she once thought impossible. She led a creative team on a global campaign, flew to Paris for a conference, and learned enough Spanish to hold cheerful conversations with strangers. Her condo walls held new photo sunrise hikes with Marcus, gallery nights with Camille, quiet mornings sipping coffee on her balcony. Every image captured a woman fully present in her own story. Darren's name still appeared on her phone from time to time, usually late at night. Each ring felt softer, like an echo fading into distance. One rainy Friday afternoon, as Lena prepared a presentation for another promotion, the screen lit up again. Darren calling. She let it buzz until it stopped, then flipped the phone face down instead. Of old memories, her mind filled with plans for the evening celebration dinner at a cozy bistro. Marcus surprising her with a bouquet of wildflowers, Camille raising a toast to growth. Lena saved her slide deck, glanced out at the city skyline, and felt the quiet satisfaction of a chapter closed by choice, by circumstance. To anyone watching, her story might look like revenge served cold, but Lena knew better. Triumph wasn't about someone else's regret. It was about her own radiance. She had learned that the brightest glow comes from within, and once it starts, no one's shadow can dim it.